Welcome to the Mindset Hackers podcast, where we will help you level up both personally and professionally. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Now, let's get going. What is up, Mindset Hackers? Thank you so much for joining me here today. I've got another amazing guest joining us. They call her the celebrity mindset coach. She's been seen on Netflix, Selling Sunset, as well as NBC's Access Hollywood. She's also been a mindset coach to celebrities, athletes, and top CEOs. She's also been selected as a mindset coach for Google's AI venture team called Gradient. Laura St. John, it is such a pleasure to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so great, Simon. Thank you for having me. Hey, Mindset Hackers. I can't wait to talk with you.
Oh, this is a great experience. We came across each other's content on LinkedIn, and then we started exchanging some DMs. And within probably a few minutes, I knew that she'd be a great fit for this podcast. She vibes high. And if you listen to this podcast often, you know I always say your vibe attracts your tribe. So this is one of the questions I had when we started DMing each other, but I knew that this would be a better asked question on the podcast. I want to know the backstory of how you ended up becoming the celebrity mindset coach. Walk me through that. And I have some questions around what you do and the people that you help.
Sure. Well, first of all, I fully believe in my heart that everyone's a celebrity. We all need to celebrate ourselves more, ups or downs or all arounds, and that, finding that superpower, finding that talent within you, recognizing your happiness and purpose, leads you to the path. So, there's an inner celebrity or rock star or hacker,
I
inside
love
all
that. That's so beautiful.
needing to bust out, and it's true. There's just a version of us that's ready to bust out. We typically see some of these people who are in their incredible talent, whether it's athletes or, celebrities that are in the news just because they're in the public, but it doesn't mean that, to me, a celebrity is still anyone who finds that path. So I love helping people uncover it. I just, then happened to also work with celebrities or even just, help people on their path and becoming one. I've always been around people while they were on the rise. It was starting even years ago. I was Peter Dinklage's next door neighbor before he got into Game of Thrones and everything. I lived next to him in New Jersey. And I just was always around people, seeing them before the rise. I've been exposed to it my whole life. My own niece now is like a top influencer, TikToker, super celebrity in her 20-year-old age bracket. And she was my first mindset coaching client. So I've just always been around people who are ready to expand their potential and, and kind of crack the code on their next level. And I'd help them out a little bit.
Well, that's beautiful. So walk me through the beginning. How did you start gaining some of your skills when it comes to mindset? What got you intrigued to get on this journey? And I know you and I talked a little bit before we hit the record button about how you have so many topics that light you up.
Totally. I've been on this path. Honestly, I'm 47. I've been on this path probably since I was 6 years old. I saw my mom go through a really tough experience with cancer. She was given 2 years to live and, defied all odds, held on to the positive outcome. She's alive today. She's enjoying her grandkids. And, I've always seen this. How do you hold the positive intent and outcome despite struggles that might be in your face? And when they're in your face and you're trying to fix them, how do you're engaging in the energy of that negativity? How do you go beyond to a version of you that doesn't quite exist yet? And so I've intuitively, honestly, seen this my whole life, but professionally, I've been, helping unlock people's potential my entire career. I think back to even when I was 19, 20 years old, helping my parents' education company. We expanded it to over 700 locations. We partnered with Discovery Channel, Discovery Kids. We taught kids to believe in themselves using technology as a tool, not a toy. And, we just created, and I always say kids taught me everything I needed to know, working with children, working with teachers, working with parents, being in that realm and expanding that education company. I learned, how do you unlock people's potential despite, if a teacher is labeling this child or, and kids are so close to their truth. So I always want to thank all thousands of children I got to work with over the years in that market, in that education sector, because it was like my R&D to mindset. I learned how people labeled people, how people, just shrunk people's potential, how kids would react and, want to be, make their teacher or parent happy in order for them to feel happy. And I just saw that I could flip I could flip classrooms. I would be given literally sometimes the worst classrooms to go into. And I'd be like, these are not misbehaved kids. They're amazing kids. They're just acting this way because they love to get attention. And I would flip all these classrooms and I'd, unlock potential in people. So that's what started the path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
children are you can learn so much from them. I love it because my kids are like my best teacher, and I can't imagine that the experiences that you've had on this journey. How did that lead up? So you did that. You worked with your parents. You helped their
Yep.
educational company blow up. What led you to becoming, a mindset coach for some of the celebrities? And tell me about like
Yep.
some of the shows that you've been on. Like I
Yeah.
mentioned
Yeah.
Sunset,
Perfect.
Selling Sunset. Tell me
I would
about that.
Yeah, super fun. I love, it's really been interesting because from that point, we're like, we can translate this into any market. You can unlock potential. It doesn't have to just be in kids. How do we translate this to, adults? And my husband and I opened up gyms in Denver, Colorado, called Pearl Street Fitness. And that was an awesome success. It was like a sensation because we knew how to make people feel good about themselves. And so, one thing led to another. I would say it was the perfect storm that stepped me into becoming a mindset coach. While he was opening gyms and really, he's a fitness guy, so it was like very physical. I could tell when people were coming through the door that they also mentally and emotionally had a down spiral moment in their life where something clicked or something went down, and a divorce or a death in the family, or just a negative event that spun them into the negative direction. So I started designing these mindset classes to shift them mentally and emotionally while they were coming to our gyms to shift physically. And they would just transform so much faster altogether, mentally, emotionally, physically. And then at the same time, my niece, who was on track for 2020 Olympics at that time, was like, my sister Kat was like, she's getting stuck in her head. I tried all the sports psychologists and stuff. She's like, Aunt Laura's into all this positive mindset manifesting stuff, start talking to Aunt Laura. And I started unlocking using the same tools that I was doing mentally and emotionally with some of the people at our gym. I started doing it for her at 12, 13 years old. And, again, using all my educational years and different things. But I started creating all these frameworks of how do you get unstuck? And before I knew it, I was Aunt Laura to all these teenagers on the East Coast, because she was in New Jersey at that time, New York, New Jersey, people calling me being like, we need an Aunt Laura, or coaches calling me being like, how do you get this athlete to do this move? Are you a gymnast? And I was like, no, I just know how to remove the fear. Like I know how to teach people to remove the self-doubt, and, that unblocks. So I designed all these tools initially, again, from the kids to the teens to working with my own niece, and then for our gyms. And before I knew it, just people kept coming to me and but how, Laura? And I was just like, wow, it's so interesting out there because there's so much science and there's a lot of spirituality, but there was not a lot of like practical, how do I do this when this triggers in my face? Or how do I do this when this, is keeping me stuck, a money challenge or a career challenge or a, athletic challenge. So I kept designing the but hows, to the point that even a 10-year-old could understand how I was just doing it.
Well, that's awesome. So what is the framework like? What kind of techniques do you use to help people get unstuck?
Yeah. So, I've designed a lot of methods to just help people. And, first of all, I help people understand like their learning styles, because for some people it's affirmations and they're very, they're auditory in terms of a learning style. For some people, a lot of people, it's more visual and hands-on. And I felt like for kids, it needed to be very visual, very hands-on, and that worked really well for adults. So, folding a piece of paper in half. One of my tools is a flip it list, where you just write flip it on top and you recognize on the left side of the page your top 3 things that you no longer want. Like most people are so clear on what they no longer want and are usually taking action from that side of the page. So I show people very clearly in a flip it list, for example, their top 3 things that they think are keeping them stuck: thoughts, emotions, situations that are blocking them, and then the undercurrent of the emotion that's holding them there. And then we create the flip it list to show them the exact opposite, like Newton's law, the action reaction side, the negative to positive, the lack to abundance, the doubt to trust. I show people very clearly on the other side, there's a whole other perspective of solution to that problem. And if you start taking action from the solution side, you will get a very different result faster. And so I, just designed just like that, like these pages or, happy lists or, flip it lists, and these tools that could just be like, take out a piece of paper, write this down, do this, see that. And people were gravitating towards it because they could suddenly, shrink the size of that challenge that had been weighing on their shoulders when they just see it black and white like that, and, encourage, which flips the energy into the positive. So they could really courageously face their struggles differently.
I love
So
that because
that's
it's
kind of
so
what led me out
simple.
here.
It's so
Oh,
simple.
so simple.
I've got one that's
So
similar where I talk about, I love teaching when it comes like a superhero analogy, right? Because you said that we all have a celebrity inside of us. I always talk about like, well, we all have a superhero and an alter ego, and the superhero is the one that steps into their highest power, and then there's an alter ego trying to hold you back, trying to keep you in your comfort zone. But I love what you said. It's very similar to that and very simple. The flipping that's awesome, because that was one of the questions that I had for you, was to
oh
tell me more
yeah.
about that.
The flip it method, I mean, and that's kind of how I started getting known with celebrities and athletes, and as I moved to Malibu. So it was, of course, like, some of my one of my very best friends, Vanessa, on our very first walk on a beach, she was just almost like, what do you want to manifest? And she was like, I want to manifest the love of my life, and I want to manifest breaking into the American acting scene. And so I helped her manifest the love of her life. I was just a maid of honor at her wedding, and she found her man like in the UK, like completely on the other side of the world, but they just got married. And, and also I helped her manifest the spot on Netflix on Selling Sunset. And then within, months, I was just like, wow, that would be a really great way. I would love to manifest my way onto that, but only not as her friend, but as a mindset coach. And then I watched the show
Mm.
and I was like, ooh, Christine Quinn. I was like, ooh, she's a powerful manifester. You either love her or hate her. I don't know if you watch the show, but she's got a big audience. And I was like, I know I could help her. And I know if I helped her on the show, I could reach a lot of people in the audience that are struggling with similar problems to hers, which was really always my intent. It's not about me getting on the show. Even when I was on Access Hollywood, or Mario Lopez, sought out my content and stuff, to be on the show. I was like, it's not about me. It's about, my content being delivered to the people who really need to hear my messages. And sometimes that's through these incredible challenges, channels like a show or like this podcast, right? People that
Absolutely.
need
And I
to
think
hear
it's
it.
kind of fun when you do stuff like that, because it's like it almost proves that the universe is there to support you, and that we all have the
Mhm.
tools, and like we can figure things out. So I love that you did that. So you had this intent in your head that you wanted to get on the show, and then you made it happen. Tell me how
I
you did
did.
that.
And, I released it. It's just kind of like, moving into this dream house that I'm in right now in Malibu. It's just like, I have a really fun saying I say, which is that or better. So I'm kind of like, I put out the broadcasted signal out from my mindset being like, well, my mind logically like loves this idea. And my heart is like that or even better, because that exists, or there's an energy that is even beyond it that maybe I don't see right now that could even be better than that. So most people think that or worse, or like, you know what I mean? Most people are projecting the negative outcome and worrying about what could go wrong. I flip that overthinking process. It's part of my flip it, where you can start to overthink your dreams, overthink like, well, what if that were to happen? Or even better, and embellish that. So I was starting to think, well, maybe it's this show. Maybe it's a different show. Maybe it's my own show. Now I have all these producers like reaching out to me, and it's so funny because I'm just like, wow, you do put that out there and you release it. I release any neediness for it to be in that path, because otherwise I used to hyper control it. I used to feel the energy of it and then be like, it becomes like manipulative, because you feel like you can move the parts. Or if you're a high achiever and you're listening to this, like you see a path, and then you can get very upset or disgruntled when a curveball comes, and when you kind of release it to that or better, you are like, all right, like, I can't wait to see how this is going to unfold. And let me put all my energy into the outcome that I can feel in my heart. And then I just feel the outcome so deeply. And I feel the level of content and happiness, that I would feel as if I was already done. And then I don't need it anymore, because I'm like, oh, I could access that feeling right now, by doing
Oh,
something else. And then I release it. I completely release it, and it shows up so fast.
I can totally connect with that. And I'm so glad you brought that up. It's like people are always saying, they're thinking about like the worst thing that can happen. And, even the saying, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You're almost like priming that, right? And what you're saying is in your head, like, what's the best thing that can happen? This or better. I love that. And it's such a great example
Thank you.
of flipping. So, yeah, before I move on, Tell me more about this neediness thing and the control thing, because before we hopped on, I was telling you, like, I just feel like I'm living my dream. I'm just having so much fun. Reach out to people, get them on my podcast, create content that I love, right? And everything just seems to fall into place. Tell me more about why is it important to not have that needy, and I talk about this in sales, by the way, but not having that needy, desperate energy versus this uncontrolling, it's already happened energy.
Hmm. I mean, I love that too. And I specifically love it for business and sales and helping people, reach their exponential, like ultra mega success levels, because I think anything possible. I think impossible is such an outdated, like limited perspective
Mhm.
that, that when you are not sure of yourself or the situation and you're insecure about it, it fires off self-doubt. And the moment you're in doubt, your brain is like alert, alert, like what could go wrong. So it's normal to just recognize that self-doubt is a manifestation of fear. It's coming out and it's blocking your happiness. It's blocking your ability to create. It's blocking your ability to see the outcome that you actually want. So it's a block. So self-doubt creates the limiting beliefs. Self-doubt creates the actual roadblocks. And then when you try to take action from doubt, you're either proving yourself because you're trying to like find your self-worth, you're trying to overcompensate to undo something. And it's just when you're in self-doubt and you take action, you're most likely going to fall flat on your face or down spiral or try to force or push. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where when I used to, have a big goal or dream, but then would allow the self-doubt to, bubble up and then take action from that, I would always feel like I needed to control the pieces. And I would go into like a hyper controlling Laura St. John, not my best Laura, me. And I'd, want to move all the parts and pieces. I'd be like, I'd say, I was saying I was bossy versus boss. I have a whole little course called Be Boss, Not Bossy. And it was a control freak version of me. That is not healthy, because then you're moving from an energy of lack. And, you could still get there, but it's going to be more exhausting, more uncomfortable, and it's going to take a lot longer than it needs to. And when you learn to do my flip it, where again, you're flipping into learning how to access an infinite amount of trust and happiness that is inside you right now, that's just being blocked. And you can tap into self-trust. You can see past the roadblock. You can see the outcome where you're ultra mega successful and you attract those sales, you attract that audience, you attract all those things because you step into the version of you that does not have the resistance that the current version of you has. So, you remove the resistance, which is coming from self-doubt. And that version of you, logically, I train your brain. I have a congrats card tool that I use, which is a note from your future self that I've crafted. And, I give people the template on where you tap into that future you, because your brain needs to think that it's linear. And your brain needs to think that's a future version. But your heart knows that that version exists inside you right now, infinite, unlimited. So I teach people how to sync up their logical, overthinking, smart, big brains to their bigger hearts to align to their goals and dreams and outcomes, and just how to make that process way faster.
Oh, I love it, because we're talking about some of the deeper minds. This is stuff that I love geeking out on, because it's not just the superficial mindset stuff. This is like really deep. What you said about getting past linear time, that is something that I love talking about. Also, I do something similar called the future visualization or future letter to myself or from myself. What was that thing you called again? A thank you card, or what? Tell me about that again.
A congrats card, like it's a congratulations card from your future self to your current self. And it's celebrating all the things that you released, in addition to all the things that you stepped into in terms of your power. And what I've found over the years is that if people don't celebrate the release, they're usually fighting their old selves. Like they're in a very me versus me energy where it's exhausting to fight your old self off. That's what you were talking, higher self, lower self, it's just interesting because you can release the power struggle to you from you. And so in this card template that I created, I realized that if people didn't release their old selves, they were in this constant battle, and they could step into their next identity, next version of themselves. But the old self then would come back with a vengeance and try and like take them down, and they'd self-sabotage. So I have a lot of like just techniques to step out of the self-sabotage.
Oh, that's so beautiful. The other thing I wanted to ask you about. Okay, so you said like something about like the external world, like when you're dialed in internally, the external world doesn't really matter as much because you're living it now. Tell me more about that, because that's one of the things that I love thinking about and love. Well, more importantly, I love feeling. Like when I meditate and
Mhm.
visualize, like I think it's so important to feel that. And sometimes I'm like, does the external world even matter? Because I'm feeling so good in my internal state, and I haven't heard very many other people talk about that. So this is the
Uh,
stuff I love. Tell me your thoughts on that, the internal state versus
I
the external world.
I love that conversation. I love your questions, by the way. They're so excellent. Thank you. I think that this opportunity to, I think in the last couple of years, everyone's kind of like, all right, there's got to be something else to the planet, something else to all this external stuff, like all this, what is success? What does it really mean to me? I could have all these amazing things, but, I see it here in Malibu. There's plenty of people who have, the big houses or have the fame or different things who are very unfulfilled or unsatisfied of where they're at, or maybe unhappy. And so, to me, success internally starts with being happy, and happy it's simple and yet it's complex. And most people, like, if you think about all the people you love, and including yourself, you just really want to wake up happy and go to sleep happy and sandwich everything else in. So I start with that internal. I think the power so much is in everything sometimes you don't say. Words are powerful, but you're broadcasting a statement the moment you walk in a room. And how confident you are, how positive you are, how happy you are can be felt before any words get spoken. So
Right.
internally, I totally agree that if you could access and feel a level of joy, or I even teach people that success is a feeling before it's a thing. Because if you're just going after that money in the bank account, just going after 10 million followers here on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, you're just going after that, and you're not letting in happiness, you're going to get to that and then you're going to be unfulfilled because you won't have flexed happiness along the way. So internally, if you're practicing that to the point that you're like, I don't even need this, then you're actually, but you could say, but it would be nice, or even that, or better, right? This could be an amazing representation. Like I always say, normalize whatever you normalize, normalize feeling good, normalize feeling happy, normalize being extraordinary if that's what you want. But most people are normalizing negative emotion. They're normalizing grumpy, complaining,
Hmm.
anger, and allowing
Right.
those, feelings to regurgitate a lot of thoughts or past situations that may have shooken you up. But, and anything, your life is yours to recreate at any given moment. And I do believe it starts internal, but it's about internal alignment to the external, because physical action and behaviors should align to the positive, mental and emotional state. Once you're in alignment, all the even companies and different people that I work with, I'm like, yeah, you could take all those actions all day long. But if they're coming from lack and they're coming from doubt, you're going to work 10 times harder and be that much more exhausted putting out all these fires, when you could have just have flipped it, worked less hours and been aligned and actually happier every step of the way. So it's a
Right.
major flip.
Yeah, it's like it's not all about taking action, but it's the energy behind the action. Because you two people could be doing the exact same thing, but one could be coming from a place of neediness or scarcity or greed versus one of love and compassion and sharing and helping others. And the outcomes will be completely different, even though the actions appear to be the same.
And I say 100%, it's like, go for it. But a lot of people don't know how to access the feeling. A lot of people are like, but how do I access that? And again, that's where I come in with the but hows, because I was always like, well, how do I teach someone to feel a feeling? You can use your imagination. You can make a flip it list. You can do all kinds of things. You can read your congratulations card from your future self and know that, that version of you exists inside you now. Feel that version and then take action. Because a lot of people are stuck in like what crossroads to take. Should I do path A or B? And they're sitting in indecision. And that indecision is still a decision. And it's coming from doubt. So if you don't flip doubt to trust, you're going to always be sitting in paralyzed and indecision. So it's a
Ooh,
big,
I love
again.
that. Indecision is still a decision. You're dropping some nuggets here. Thank you so much, Laura. So tell me this: who have been your big inspirations in your life? Like, who are the people that like really lit you up and inspired you?
I mean, I am inspired. I honestly, I tap into my 100-year-old self. Simon, I have a card from my 100-year-old self in my desk right now. So one of my biggest inspirations every single morning, I tap into this like grandma version of me and this like 100-year-old version of Laura St. John. That's like, don't sweat any of the small stuff. Like it all
Oh,
unfolded exactly how it was meant to. And I I feel this like 100-year-old self, I call it, and it's the ultimate inspiration because it's empowerment to me from me. And that's why, and then I can reflect that then in other people I see, so I'll be like Mother Teresa, like small and mighty moments. I'll look at kids, like I said, the thousands of kids I got to work with were all huge fuels of inspiration to me because they were so close to the truth of who they are. My mom that I mentioned that overcame immense hardship to, fight for her life and be alive and, and defy odds. You know, my closest family and friends, I don't necessarily, because I believe everyone's a celebrity, I find inspiration. I can find a reflection of positivity, like in everyone that I meet, honestly. Like even I have compassion for negative people that I meet, or sometimes I'll pop on a live and I'll have someone be negative and I'll be like, I know you're here and you're meant to hear something from me today. So, and then people are amazed that I welcome them in. So, that's a tough question for me because I am inspired and excited by, I love people. So that's a never ending question for me. There's
and I'm
not
so
like
grateful that you said that. One of the big things for me too is I don't like putting people up on pedestals or being above anybody. I feel like we're on this journey in life, and we're going to be ahead of some people. There's going to be some people that are ahead of us, and to me it's like, I kind of see it as like a path. And can you help the people that are behind and share some nuggets with them? And there's going to be people that are further ahead on this journey, but they're not like above you and they're not below you. And this, I love your approach because you're just so down to earth and so real. And I want to know this. I think I know the answer to this, but this was one of the biggest questions I was dying to ask you was, because celebrities, actual celebrities that are on shows are human beings too. And they're not up on this pedestal. They're just like you and me, and they have similar thoughts, similar feelings, probably a lot more stress too. And I would imagine judgment too. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the mindset things or like the troubles that celebrities have to deal with? What is it that they have to overcome? And I know a lot of people that when they're stepping into something, they get things like imposter syndrome, or like you mentioned, the overthink, the indecision. But some of the like high performing athletes, CEOs, people at Google, people under a lot of pressure, people that are in the spotlight, what are some challenges that they have to overcome? And is it a lot like the average person?
Absolutely. Such a good question. And it is like everybody else. We all have very similar holes, that I say to fill, little voids that we're experiencing. There sometimes are just because they're in the public eye, it's amplified, it's magnified. So
Mm,
for example, if you are someone who suffers with, can I trust people? And it's usually then you're on a trust journey. And sometimes they're getting betrayed like left and right, business deals, relationships, different things. And it's like, that's them learning to trust their own intuition, to trust their own self, and then reflect that trust, not require trust in, a business deal to happen a certain way, or request that like a certain relationship behave a certain way in order to trust. So some people are on trust journeys. Some people are on self-worth journeys where they're highly critical of every little post they make, every little, thing they do, how the editors edited their show, and they're so judgmental of themselves. They're on a self-love journey where, can they release the criticism of themselves? And, and again, they're worried that, they're on this show and everyone's, criticizing them the same way. I'm like, no one sees it that way, like that you gotta, not be so judgmental of yourself. So, it's like reflected out the same things on a bigger scope. Sometimes it's success and making self-worth conditional on success. Like I'll feel worthy when I have this much money or I have this much fame, and then I'll feel like I, am loved and appreciated. And, they're making their self-worth which is their self-esteem and true confidence coming from within, conditional again on something external from their audience. And I'm like, you'll never feel it, whether you're at 9 million followers, 10 million followers, 20 million followers, like you'll never feel it if you're not giving it to yourself. So whether it's a celebrity or whether I'm working with a kid, you know, a 12-year-old, you know, I work with, you know, I work with athletes all the way to Australia. You know, it's global, which is really cool that it's very common that we all go through these similar things all over the world, you know, whether it's a CEO or whether it's an athlete, a celebrity, but it's a lot of the same core issues that have a lot to do with self-trust, self-love, and self-worth. And, you know, so those are three to name, but, you know, I'm sure anyone listening can relate to maybe one of those three, and there's more. But once you flip it and you recognize like, wow, I could gift myself this appreciation. I could gift myself, you know, this greater capacity to like trust the process and trust myself more and listen to that inner guidance and not need, you know, someone else to, you know, show me, you know, something in order to trust, or I can feel this self-worth, whether I have this or whether I don't have this. And so it's a big self-discovery, you know, process for people. And usually people are really ready when they find me. And find
I
my
love
content.
that. I love what you said about conditionals too, because I think that was a big breakthrough moment for me, is realizing that there isn't really, or there doesn't have to be an if then. There can be a, it's all accessible right now. And that's kind of what guided me to understanding a little bit more about the internal world, because I'd hear that, but I didn't truly understand it until I started thinking about conditionals and how that truly is an abundance block.
I mean, my favorite word is and. I want that, and I want that, and that, and that, and that, and that, and that, because I deserve it. And it, you know, I trust the timing of it. And, you know, I believe, you know, that I can have that, and that there's nothing in an abundant world that would preclude someone else from having that too. So, you know, it's really an opportunity for each of us to step into that example of self-worth or self-trust or self-love. And, you know, usually one of us is like on an adventure in this life, you know, of one of those things that we are, you know, our greatest pains are our greatest strengths. And, you know, when you flip it to the positive side and the solution side, it becomes immeasurable what you can do.
Oh, I love that. And is a beautiful word, because it's like when you're doing or, you're creating a construct that doesn't necessarily need to be there. I shouldn't even say necessarily, it doesn't need to be there. So I have loved this conversation because we've had so much alignment on things that I talk about. I'm just holding space for you to say all these amazing things that mean so much to me. So I appreciate that. Here's one realization that I had with this conversation too that's really cool, is you talked about your journey and helping children out. And like I was asking you about some of your practices, and you're talking about the flip it and the thank you from your future self. And these are fun and creative ways to, it's not like the typical stuff. Oh yeah, you got to do these affirmations and do meditation and visualization. This is like fun stuff for kids that can be so fun for adults, engaging too, and so creative. That's brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love, and again, it's like, it's limitless. You can, you know, you don't have to, I mean, even though meditation, all that's great, you don't have to go break away and, you know, and leave reality to face it and love it. And so sometimes people think like, well, now I got to take this break and I got to, you know, and I'm like, no. You can step through your day all day. One of my favorite things that I teach is I call it snack on happy. And it's another tool that I teach, and it's great with kids and it's great with adults. It's great with anybody. But I call it, you know, making a happiness plan, the way some people make meal plans, some people make, you know, workout plans. I make a happiness plan, and to get intentionally happy on purpose all day long, I call it snacking on happy. And, you know, how do you snack on joy? And it's 2 seconds. 10 seconds. It's not a lot. So you don't have to go, you know, Zen and go escape. When I first started mindset stuff, I was like, I'm too busy. I don't have 10 minutes. Like, do you want me to rattle off my to-do list to you? I've got 3 kids. I'm running like multiple businesses. I'm expanding. I could give you my reason why I had no time to look at mindset, you know, or think about mindset years ago. And then I realized I was also at a time that I was last on my list, and I didn't prioritize, you know, myself and my own happiness. So it's kind of neat. The snack on happy is one of my very first tools that I created, because I wasn't even in touch with, I was like, I'm I'm happy when everybody else is happy, but what makes me happy? So I think a lot of people can relate to that one too, of like, where are you prioritizing your happiness? Because happiness is usually the reason why you want to get that job title or crush that goal, or, you know, access something in your dreams and stuff, is that you think you'll be happier. So I kind of reverse psychology it, and I teach people to access it and calibrate to it throughout the day, you know, by having a happy list and intentionally snacking on happy until it becomes who you are and exudes from you.
I love it. There's a quote that comes to mind just that I think about as I talk to you that says, "Do something today that a future version of yourself would thank you for." And that was inspired by your congrats card from the future. That is brilliant. Okay, so I want to wrap this up with, tell me what is big on the horizon for you. What's lighting you up? Where can people find you? Do you have any programs that anybody can access? Tell me a little bit more about that. We want to
Sure.
send some people
I,
your way too.
I would love that. Thanks, Simon. And we'll do a special promo code for your audience and stuff. You know, for mindset hackers, we'll do a mindset hackers code for you. But I launched Mindset School in 2023, which is my private group coaching experience gone to the next level. I launched it after being on the Netflix show. I had so many people all over the world wanting my private coaching because they saw what I was doing on a private level. And I was like, all right, I do love working with people privately, but I know in my heart, I'm meant to impact the masses. Like, I know I'm not meant to just be on a phone all day, you know, even though that's great working with all these high level people, it's not where my purpose is. It's part of my purpose. So I do some minimal private coaching and working with companies, and I keep that intentionally, like upscale and at a very minimal amount. So it's just a certain amount of time that I allocate every month. And then I have private group coaching, which is my mindset school, where, you know, I do like webinars at least twice a week with people, on every week is a different topic to get unstuck, learn one of my mindset tools, and then practice and apply it. So it's like immediate application. And then I do different segments so they could apply it to career and purpose, or, you know, health and happiness, or love and relationships, and different categories of their life with immediate application. That's been a huge goal of mine that I have been able to, like, that is completely lighting me up, because it's the collective energy then of the group, like all, you know, what people are manifesting is, you know, the messages I get to wake up to every day are so inspiring. It just pushes that so much more. Another thing is that I have the Mindset School for kids and teens launching,
Wow.
which is like
Yes.
one of the truest things to my heart, because it's where I started my entire career. You know, it's how I helped my original client, Livy Dunn, like become the #1 NCAA, like female paid athlete. Like, you know, I have so many elite athletes and kid athletes that I've coached, that I was like, I created all kinds of programs that bring me back to my roots of working with mindset, with kids and teenagers that really desperately need it now more than ever. So I'm super excited about that project and can't wait to see, you know, what unfolds there. And then, you know, I've got my digital courses. Before I did anything, even privately, I created all my courses digitally. So they're super easy and accessible. I put out a ton of free content, and it's like next to free, you know, $20 courses and different things that are so easy for people to just get their feet wet or get an introduction. You know, so I kind of created all the different levels, so my heart would feel like I could reach every audience and
Oh, love
I'm not
it.
leaving anyone out. And so that's all at my website, which is Strong Confident Living. So Strong Confident Living is my company. And, you know, it's all about how to live more strong, more confident in any area of your life. And you get to choose then the digital or the private group, or the, you know, you could hit me up if you want to know more about the privates.
Oh, Laura, this is beautiful. I've completely enjoyed my time with you. And Mindset Hackers will drop all this stuff in the show notes. And I encourage you to connect with this wonderful woman, this inspiring woman. And as somebody who has worked literally with hundreds of mindset coaches, it's really good to hear how deep your concepts are, how simple they are to implement too, because one of the things that is the theme of this year is clarity and simplicity. And, you know, that's what I'm feeling from your techniques and your practices, and just your vibe and your energy, that anybody is a celebrity. That is really warming to my heart, because that aligns with my soul as well. So Mindset Hackers, here's your instructions. Make sure you check the show notes. Make sure you connect with Laura on socials, or at least follow her. And then also please share this with somebody that you know who could use this message. There's a lot of great nuggets in here. So please don't be afraid to share this with somebody else. And if you're on iTunes or Spotify, I would love it if you'd pull out your phone right now and give this podcast a rating. And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thanks, Simon. You're awesome. Thank you so much.